Good day. I'm Martin Gago with Market Radius Research. It's Thursday, May the 26th, and we've got CEO Marc Lebel of FRX Innovations joining us. I'm excited to have Marc join us. The company has just started trading on the TSX Venture a couple of days ago. FRX has a novel and much needed solution for the plastics and chemical space. Most people don't realize the trade-offs for creating fire retardant plastics is that there is toxicity in the existing solutions. FRX's technology allows for a greener and safer solution to provide flame retardant attributes to plastics. While this is inherently good, it is also being mandated by regulatory agencies globally. I'm looking forward to understanding the technology, its attributes, and what barriers and opportunities and competition exist that could drive or hinder mass adoption of their technology. But please remember, this is neither a recommendation nor an investment advice. We're here to learn about the company. Marc, thank you very much for joining us today. And please tell us about FRX Innovations.
Okay, thank you very much, Martin. Everybody, just to put a little bit of context behind this here. So in the plastics world, there's a subset of plastics that are required to be flame retardant by law. So it's mandated by governments around the world. The applications, you find them in any plastic that comes near a power source. Electricity is flame retardant. Plastics and synthetics that go into commercial buildings are all flame retardant. And plastics that are in mass transportation or personal transportation are all flame retardant, and especially with the advent of electric vehicles, flame retardants plastics are required to be flame retardant in EVs a lot more than they were in IC engines. So that's the world that we live in. It's a $62 billion plastics, flame retardant plastics market. The $62 billion is supported by $9 billion worth of additives. And we're talking about additives now. This is what FRX is in the additive side of this business.
So your market isn't the 62 billion; it's the 9 billion.
It's the 9 billion, yeah. But we, the plastics that we flame retard end up in that $62 billion market. So what makes us unique in this world is that we are actually the only producer of a non-halogenated, or call it non-toxic, non-leaching flame retardant solution in the world. We developed this in 2007. It was a research project, and we patented it extensively. We built our plant. It's operating in Antwerp, and we're right now at this inflection point with this product. And it's a product family that we produce in Antwerp. So it's totally unique. We're the only producer of this type of product in the world. And we have a tremendous tailwind because there's been legislation that has that has really changed the world here this year in 2022. So it's opening up some huge markets. What makes NoFi is our trade name. What makes it really interesting as well, in addition to the tailwinds and the fact that we're at this inflection point, is that the product, because it's so unique, it's so different. It's a plastic, So think of it as a plastic pellets that are compounded into the host plastic to make it flame retardant, and then that host plastic is then formed into parts. It can be injection molded, it could be extruded, any kind of plastic forming process into these parts. And what we deliver to that plastic is performance beyond flame retardancy, and that's why we're getting adopted by some of the biggest brands in the world. The markets that we're in, electrical, electronics, in automotive, including electric vehicles, mass transportation, like in textiles for cruise ships, in trains or in planes, in building and construction. We have applications there, medical device housings, and fibers and textiles generally in a lot of different applications.
So those areas are all regulated in the US or Europe or whatever, say, hey, you need a certain sort of level of fire retardancy in there.
Right. And every single application has a different type of spec, a different kind of specification for flame retardancy. First thing you've got to do is meet that FR requirement, and then once you've met that, you've met the basic requirement, then customers look at, okay, what else can you do beyond flame retardancy, and how does this product help me meet my customers and goals? So that's how it happens.
So you talked about pellets. When you process plastics to mold it into something or do whatever with it, you buy it bulk in these little pellets and melt it down and then extrude it or whatever. So when they're doing that, let's say if for 100 pounds of the plastics in there, you'd put a pound of your stuff or whatever the ratio is, and it would just mix in. So does it alter their production process at all, or is it just kind of seamless on how it gets incorporated?
It's seamless because we're mixing pellets with pellets. You then melt it together to make the incorporated, with no fire, incorporated into that pellet. Sometimes you'll repelletize it, and then that's what's shipped to a molder or an extruder to make the part, and then it gets adopted by an OEM in a system. So, for instance, let's say if we're in a television, the back plate of a television, the flat screen TV. So go and look at your flat screen TV after this talk, and you'll see a big piece of plastic on the back. So that's molded. That's injection molded. And what we do there is we will ship our material to the company that's making that plastic. Let's say if they're making it out of ABS plastic or polycarbonate ABS, they will incorporate us into that plastic, and then they will mold. Then the molder will mold the piece and send that to the original equipment manufacturer, which would be like an LG or a Samsung, and they put the television together and put the back plate onto the television. That's how we would get incorporated there.
And is that how the current halide or halogen-based systems work as well? They just drop in some pellets of halogen in it?
It's not pellets; it's powder. So typically, so most flame retardants sold today are either liquids or powders. There's very few polymeric form of flame retardants out there. They're liquids, so it's a little bit more complicated to incorporate that, because you're incorporating a powder into a pellet. You've got to get it well dispersed so that it works well. If you're putting a liquid into a pellet, then you've got to compound it in a way that it gets into the plastic. That liquid gets in and stays in the plastic. So those are the challenges of incorporating the competition. Also, when you think about it, what we're doing is we're incorporating a really big molecule into a really big molecule. And that's why it's non-migrating. It does not leach out of that plastic over time. And that's what makes our solution unique in one way, because it's a permanent solution. You're putting flame retardancy in there. You don't want it to come out over time. And the best way to explain that is your car. You go into your car, you bought a brand new car. 3 months later, you look at your front windshield, and you see a kind of a buildup of grease on the inside windshield. If you ever notice that, you'd really notice it at night when you're driving at night. You got headlights coming at you. You see this buildup on the inside windshield, and that happens for all cars. Expensive cars as well as non-expensive cars. And so that is basically the chemicals coming out of the plastic in the foam inside your car or in the dashboard, and condensing on the inside windshield, and that's what we eliminate as a form, because it's a polymer where we're producing a plastic.
All right. Does it impact like recyclability or any other kind of mechanical or kind of physical attributes as well?
Yeah, because it's a polymer. We're going into a polymer. We can recycle our product. A customer can recycle their no-fire-based product way easier than they can with the classical flame retardants that are out there. We have actually a customer that's that's presenting around the world now. Their new product is called No Toxicom. It's based on NoFia, and they're showing data of recycling their product versus the classical flame retardants, and they're able to maintain all the properties after 100% recycling of 2 or 3 times through machine, as if you were doing a full recycle. So that they're whereas the competition loses its flame retardancy because the material starts to come out as you put it through many heat cycles. Our product stays in the host plastic, so you maintain those properties. The other thing I'd say about recycling, which is really important, is that the world is moving towards using more and more recycled plastics in really high-end goods, so that we have a circular economy for the plastics industry, and so people want to take recycled streams and upgrade them, and one of the ways to upgrade them is to make them flame retardant as well and put them into high-end applications. So we have we're already selling into that area in textiles. People are using pop bottles, recycling them, and then incorporating our product into polyester, which is what you make pop bottles out of, and then spinning fibers and then putting that into clothing or putting that into furniture, or we have another customer that's making a structural foam for building and construction from recycled polyester, and making a structural foam that's used for subfloors, for planes or for gangways. They're able to thermoform it. So there's all kinds of really interesting things going on. And then some really big OEMs are wanting to make covers for smart speaker systems. For instance, we have a couple of programs there out of recycled polyester. So we're in that market as well from that angle, as well as just being able to allow people to recycle what they're making that contains no fire.
I feel like I'm about to do an infomercial thing here, but like it's got all these benefits. Like, what doesn't it do? Are there any sort of negative trade-offs on it? Maybe it costs more or something, but in terms of physical attributes, any downside relative to the existing?
No, I mean, I think that the really tough thing about bringing a new material into the world is that it's new. That is, people have to figure out how to use it and how to deploy it for their advantage, and so that's what we spent the last 5 years, figuring out with customers. How do you deploy it? How do you make use of it? How do you what level of loading do you need to achieve the optimal properties? So that's and which polymer systems does it work in? Does it work in polypropylene? In our case, we don't work in polypropylene like in the polyolefins. We work in the engineering plastic side of the business. So polycarbonate, polyesters, polycarbonate alloys, epoxies. Those are the types of polymers that we work really well in, and that's where we focus our attention. Okay. So what why invest and why invest now? I think the best reason is that we're at this inflection point as a company, and that's really been driven by these tailwinds that I'm going to talk about in a bit here. There's a huge regulatory change that is happening right now, and that is creating a huge opportunity for FRX and for NoFia, where we've already pre these tailwinds, we were being adopted by some of the leading brands in the world, and so that continues. But now it opens up a bunch of new markets for us. We have a really our direct customers are really big named customers. We have both shareholders and big chemical companies that are both shareholders and customers. So BASF, for instance, Evonik, Italmatch. Those are 3 strategics that are all shareholders in FRX and also customers of ours. DuPont, Teijin is a customer of ours. Reliance Industries in India. Lotte Chemicals in South Korea. So we have a really strong group of customers that are getting us into all kinds of different applications. And the other thing is that the plant is built, so we didn't go public to raise capital to build a plant. That's all been done already. The plant is operating; it's generating revenue, and we're at this point where we think we're going to be selling this thing out in the next little while. Depending on how well things go in the next 3 to 6 months, we might even need to be expanding it next year. So today, the plant as it sits today has a revenue generating potential of $35 million USD, and it can be expanded for about $12 million to $80 million, so more than doubling it. And the plant sits in Antwerp, which is in Belgium. It's on the largest. It's on a large polycarbonate site owned by Covestro. We put it on that site because 2 of the 3 key raw materials that we need to produce our product come from the polycarbonate supply chain. So being on a big polycarbonate site where they're making those 2 raw materials, we're able to get them just in time, and we're getting them at world prices. So we're kind of in a good situation there. And then, you know, Antwerp, as you may or may not know, the Antwerp port is the largest chemical manufacturing hub in all of Europe, and number 2 in the world. So great logistics in and out. So if you're going to have one plant producing polyphosphonates, which is the type of polymer that we make here, if you're going to have one plant, a good place to put it is in Europe, because it's equidistance time-wise between North America and Asia. And so the 3 big markets are Europe, North America, and Asia, South Korea, China. So having the plant kind of in the middle is a good place to be. So that's why we put it there, and we want it to be on a polycarbonate site. Yeah, so those are the main big reasons for wanting to invest in FRX and wanting to invest now, as we're at this inflection point. Okay, so this is the big thing that has happened here in terms of the regulatory change. This chart is showing you, you know, the regulatory moves that have been made since 2000, and 2022 is for the first time in the history of flame retardants, and I think in chemicals generally, 2 big regions have banned all brominated flame retardants in electronic display housing. So it used to be the way that they were banning these things is they would ban one type of bromine, and then the bromine industry, you know, they said, okay, well, here's another one. This one's not banned. You can use this one, and then people would gravitate to the next bromine one, and then a year later, oh, that one's banned as well, and then, you know, just kind of a whack-a-mole, keep going down going forward and switching out every a few years. That's why you see that the bromine industry continued to thrive even though products were being phased out. But what happened in 2019 is the European Union decided that they were going to ban all brominated flame retardants in the housings market, because electronic housings market, because they wanted to promote recycling, and you're not going to recycle a product that has a banned substance in it, and you can't tell, you know, once you put bromine into a plastic, you don't know what kind of which one it is. You don't know if it was one of the ones that were banned or not banned, and so the European Union says, you know what, we're going to ban everything. We're going to ban all brominated flame retardants. You can no longer use them. So in 2019, they passed that legislation. It was immediately challenged by the bromine industry, the bromine flame retardant industry. And on March 16, 2022, so just, you know, a couple of months ago, the European Union won the case, and now it's law in Europe. In the meantime, the state of New York passed almost identical legislation to the European Union, and it passed right before the new year, and they announced it on January 2nd, 2022. So this is creating a sea change, because people have 2 years to switch out of bromine now, and they can't use some other bromine. They have to be out of bromine and into a different flame retardant in order to be able to sell products in Europe and essentially in all of the United States and in Canada. And the reason that one state, does it for everybody is that there's not one, television manufacturer, there's not one computer company that wants to produce a product just for the state of New York. And likewise, they don't want to produce a product for every state except for New York, because they're giving up 20 million people of a market of 20 million. So one state goes in the United States, it's as good as getting the whole country to go. And likewise for Canada, because the OEMs are also they view North America as one market, so they produce products for the North American market. So anyways, that is creating an absolute sea change in terms of the world that we're in, and we've got some incredibly big opportunities as a result of that, which we think is going to create the kind of demand that will force us to have to double the size of our plant in Antwerp within short. So this is to put it in a better context and better understanding. So this is the $62 billion flame retardant plastics and additives market. It's supported by 9 billion of additives, and this legislation is creating a change in 1.5 billion of the 9 billion of additives is going to be switched out. So 1.5 billion of it is bromine with its synergist that is being switched out. And to give you an idea of the tonnage here, that's 190,000 tons. The plant in Antwerp that we have today is a 3,500 ton plant. 3,500. That's why it'll get sold out. We don't have to take a big chunk of this 190 to 190,000 tons to sell out, and that's why we're gonna be looking to expand this plant almost immediately. And the reason we have to do it is that we're the only producer of polyphosphonates in the world. People are adopting us, big brands and big customers. They only want to do that if they know that we're going to be there and we're going to be able to support them. And so that we have a responsibility as being a sole producer of a material to be there. And that's one of the reasons why we wanted to go public, is that we would be able to much easier expand this plant, because we'd be able to raise money once we were public to expand the plant. It's not a huge amount of money. It's 12 million to do, but that's what we're going to need to do.
All right. Sorry, just a couple of quick questions here. You talked earlier about halogenated, and then you're talking about bromine. Are those sort of equivalent chemicals, or is it a process, or what?
No. So halogen is a class. If you remember your chemistry in high school, your periodic table, there was the halogens. That's chlorine, bromine, fluorine. Okay. There's a whole bunch. And so bromine is a halogenated flame retardant. So sorry, I'm so used to talking about it that we talk about halogen free or bromine free, but that's one and the same.
Gotcha. And you've got 1.5 billion under immediate threat. What sector is that, or what's the part that's not under an immediate threat? So
under immediate threat is what is used in the electronic housings market. That's under immediate threat. So it's that group of applications that have been where it's being phased out by the European Union and by the state of New York. So all of the United States and Canada. So that is the 1.5 billion. What we think is going to happen is that that's going to permeate across the world, and that's going to give you another 1.5 billion. And then the rest of it, there's about 1 billion of it that will not be attacked, and that's the bromine that is used in printed circuit boards. It's not an application that we touch, with our hands. The reason that in housings, housings for all kinds of devices, why it's being phased out there is that these are high touch surface areas. So you're always touching your laptop, your television, you're moving it around, you're touching the back of your television. They're also in the home. So if the bromine comes out over time, it gets into the dust in the house, and then we ingest. We don't pass them because they bioaccumulate and then they're toxic. So this is why the world is going in this direction, and why Europe and the state of New York took the lead here to ban them all. And so that's what's happening. But if you think about a printed circuit board, that's inside the device. You're not going to touch it, and so they're not under immediate threat in those kinds of applications. There's about 1 billion there, but we're still in the printed circuit board market ourselves, because there's still many OEMs that just don't want bromine at all. Like Apple is not wanting bromine anywhere. Google does not want bromine anywhere. HP does not want bromine anywhere. So you find the really the really big brands are very conscious about what they're using in their products.
So just technically you can replace it, but most manufacturers will not be replacing it because there's no immediate regulatory threat, because people don't actually touch the circuit board.
Right.
Generally.
But like I say, it's not just a regulatory threat. That's the big thing that's happening now. But there are big OEMs that have decided, they put their own policies in place, and they've just decided no more bromine in their products.
Okay.
And if I go back one, this is what you see here in Google and Apple. They came out with an announcement, and so did Best Buy. So it's not just the OEMs, but also the big retailers are all jumping on the bandwagon. Nobody wants to be seen, but in today's world as being as pushing materials that are known to be carcinogens. Nobody wants to be doing that. Now you'll have some brands in China, and you'll have some brands in other parts of the world where maybe it's not so important. But if they want to sell into North America, if they want to sell into Europe, then they got to get on board.
Right.
Okay. So this is how we see, these pie charts is how we see our business. This is Nofia's business here. So if you look at these different at these 3 different pie charts, and you look at how we see our business evolving, first you see growth. The balls are getting bigger. In 2023, we think this is a sold out situation for us. And if you look at what's happening here, it's the blue that is really taking hold. The light blue pie in this pie chart is the electronic display market. And that's the kind of growth we're expecting in this market. It started in 2021 already, although the legislation hadn't passed. People could see that it was going to pass. It was coming. The European Union was fighting this case in court. There were leaks from this case that the European Union was going to prevail. So we started selling already in 2021. This year we're going to be selling even more, and then next year it's going to be the big piece of our total business, because of one client that came to us a month ago and offered 3,000 tons to us for 2023, and we can't take it. It's just too much. We're not going to put 3,000 tons with one client, and we'd be shorting everybody else, because we're not going to have the plant expanded in 2023. So we're going to take as much as we can. We really want this client. It's a household name. Probably people on this call have their products in their homes. So we want to be in that with that client, but we're limiting how much we're going to put. So this is taking a piece of it, like 1,500 to 2,000 tons of it in 2023.
So just to be clear, this pie chart, this is your revenues, not the industry in that. So
correct.
In 2021, 2/3-ish of your business went to the textiles market, and in 2023 are expecting maybe 1/3 of it to be into textiles.
Yeah, a little bit more than 1/3. I'd say more like 45%, and then in 2023 it'll be like 25% of our business, something like that, a little bit less maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So
And
what is really going to be growing is what is being mandated to be out of bromine, which is this light blue, and that's really what is going to be a significant piece of our business.
okay.
So I talked a little bit about the uniqueness of the material, and I just want to give one example of the uniqueness of the material beyond flame retardancy. There's a lot. I mean, in every single application, that's how we develop the market, is trying to figure out where we bring advantage that nobody else can bring, because if we do that correctly, then we'll have very sticky revenue stream. And we've never lost a customer since the beginning of our commercial lives at FRX. But one example is this one here, the film example, and it's a neat example because it also speaks to COVID and hospital beds and isolating COVID patients in a hospital. So this is a film that is produced by DuPont Teijin. It's one of our customers. And before Nofia, you weren't able to make a flame retardant, transparent polyester film. Just was not possible. You couldn't, with the existing flame retardants, do this kind of application. So, it's pretty obvious why it needs to be transparent. It's obvious why it needs to be flame retardant, because it's in a commercial building. Hospitals are commercial buildings.
And sorry, that's the thin under films, that obviously films are thin. It's the wrapper around the room to keep COVID out and that sort of thing. I would guess that stuff, since it's so thin, if it's going to catch on fire, would go pretty quick as well, since it's...
Yeah, and so that's why it needs to be flame retardant. It may have, a special kind of a test for this. It's a VTM0 test that they do for this. But the third attribute here that Nofia imparted to this film is that it also needs to be chemical resistant, because if you think of a patient being discharged from the hospital, had COVID, you're going to want to disinfect the film with pretty aggressive disinfectants. So it needed really good chemical resistance as well. So, that was kind of like a trifecta for us, transparency, flame retardancy, and chemical resistance. So this is when I talk about properties beyond flame retardancy, that's how we think about it. And we look for those applications, because if we can get into enough of them, it'll give us, great growth, but also it'll give us like an annuity in terms of our revenue stream. It's also true in foams in automotive. And that's because, one of the big specs in automotive, especially in China, is what they call fogging resistance. So you don't want chemicals to be coming out of the upholstery or the foam and creating a fog inside the car, which really means the chemical condensing on the inside windshield. And in China, they don't like the new car smell. Unlike us, we love this new car smell, which is just smelling the chemicals that are in your car. So that, we're able to meet that spec in spades. We actually we're able to demonstrate a 92% reduction in volatile organic content by using Nofia, and that's why we're in the BMW X5 series, for instance, in foams inside of cars in China. The X5 is produced in China and North Carolina, and we're in the Chinese version of it. So anyways, those are just examples of flame retardancy and properties beyond flame retardancy.
So if the automotive sector switched over to Nofia, you would get rid of the new car smell?
Well, a big part of it, because that is the the volatiles in the plastics.
Yeah.
That are causing it. But there's more than coming out of foams. It's in the upholstery. It's in the plastic. On the dashboard. Around the nav system. It's that high gloss plastic. So there's a lot of applications for plastics inside of cars, and you'd have to kind of do a full-on change of everything if you really wanted to get out of to get it completely out. These are some of the other applications that are coming. This electronic housings is the big one. It's going to be much faster than what we thought because of the legislation, And the big market there is televisions. Flat screen televisions is going to be a huge market there. But we have programs going in all of these beyond what I showed you in the last slide. You know, the films, foams, and printed circuit boards and textiles. So we're in electric vehicles. This is a commercial application for us right now. It's the conduit that you're pulling wire and cable through for wire and cable for electric vehicles. So you know, there's a lot more wire and cable in an EV than there is in internal combustion vehicles, and you want to route them in a really neat way that you don't have you know, wire just by itself. So you put them in bundles, and then you pull them through a conduit. You thermoform it to get it into a nice position inside the car, and then you've got a really nice routing that protects the wire and cable. And in electric vehicles, what's interesting is that the specs for flame retardancy are going up because there's a lot of electricity and high voltage being run around the car. And you also need, the polymer needs to have a much higher resistance to voltage than what you used to have. So it's a 600 volt minimum breakdown for that polymer in electric vehicle versus internal combustion vehicles was like 250 volts. So it just shows you how technology, how, you know, when we're making these switches, it has impact on the polymers. And our customer here in this one is Evonik. It's also our second largest shareholder, and they've produced a product with NoFia that gives them 1,000 volts breakdown in addition to the flame retardancy. And that has been enabled by NoFia. So that's another value add that we're bringing beyond flame retardancy here is helping them get to a really high voltage breakdown.
Sorry, you mentioned Evonik. Just so people are aware, they're a huge European chemical company. We don't hear about it too much in North America. I think we hear about 3M and other guys, but Evonik's huge in Europe, right?
Right. They're number 15 in the world. They're about 16 billion euro sales, roundabout. Their headquarters is in Essen, Germany, but they're global. They're all over the place.
Yeah.
And they make all kinds of different products. You know, they're making all kinds of different chemicals. You know, this is one of the new ones that we just won. We announced it actually yesterday. This is a casing for lithium-ion battery. So one of our customers won this business here with an OEM in the Netherlands. The OEM's name is Super B, and they're making lithium-ion batteries for a whole range of applications, you know, outside of automotive. So leisure boats, you know, sporting goods, you know, all kinds of mobility applications outside of cars, and the power tools. So they make a whole range of these batteries, lithium-ion batteries, and they selected our customer's product, which is based on NoFia, as the material for the casing, and it's a really exciting application. We're going to grow with this customer, but it also is our first big application directly with a lithium-ion battery. And here we replaced polypropylene casing flame retardant with bromine, and the customer wanted out of bromine, but B, they wanted an upgrade in terms of the plastic. They wanted a much higher temperature plastic because, you know, lithium-ion batteries, you know, as clean as they are dangerous. They can create fires, and so you want, if there's a temperature excursion in your battery, you want the plastic to be able to withstand and not melt, you know, immediately. You know, so you want it to be able to withstand. So that's why they went to something that was really much safer, you know, from a temperature resistance point of view, but also, you know, very environmentally friendly in terms of the way you flame retarded. we these are new things, okay, new things that we've won here beyond, but not really talking about the electronic display market applications that we're working on here as a result of this change. But we're in the new combat uniform for the U.S. Military, and this is really good business, I think, for us, because it's business that's going to go on for 8 to 10 years. Every 8 to 10 years, the U.S. Military changes technology in their combat uniforms. So we're in the new one, and we took the first order in the fourth quarter, kind of in December of last year, and so this is the year where they're starting to switch it all over, and this is going to starts with U.S. Army, and then it's going to go to the other three branches, and then to the Allies. So it's a new kind of interesting application for us. We're pretty excited about it. I talked at the beginning about recycle, and this is also an area that we're keeping a really close eye, and we're being pulled into applications because our product works really well in polyester, which is arguably the biggest identifiable stream of recycled plastic there is. Pop bottles is a huge amount of polyester that's blown into pop bottles every year, and instead of putting them into landfill, grab them, recycle them, and then upgrade them into useful goods. So we have a big program with a really major retailer to make the cover for the smartphones out of it, and out of polyester. We've been working on this for about a year, and we're very close to getting a final approval and start to sell into this market. So they're doing it. Why? They're doing it because it's a big consumer product. It is people they believe will gravitate to knowing that it's based on a recycled plastic. It really bolsters their ESG image, and then you got to make it flame retardant. And Nofia works really well in polyester, so we got a really good advantage here to doing that. The bottom application is one that one of our customers won as well. There's going to be a switch over this year to the Nofia based product, and this is ABS plastic that is flame retarded today with a class 2 carcinogen. So this is an MRI machine, and they put a class 2 carcinogen in the plastic to flame retard it. And so this is a big MRI machine producer. There's the 3 big ones in the world. They're one of the 3 big ones, and they're getting out of bromine altogether. So they moved over to our customer's product. It's been in big trials and all kinds of things like that. We got approved, and now it's the switch over that is going to start to happen here in the second half of this year. But these applications alone, these new ones, would get us to a run rate by the fourth quarter of about 70% utilized in our plant in Antwerp. Before we talk about the other big opportunities that have come in the last month here as a result of the legislative change. So that's why we're kind of really excited right now and believe that this change in legislation is really creating tailwinds, which is putting us at this huge inflection point for the company. This is the third new application. This is the largest chemical company in South Korea. They've got us in 3 different applications: vape pens for the chemical resistance that we were able to impart to their material. They've got us in high gloss plastic in automotive interior. And that is for the high gloss, the low fogging resistance, or the great fogging resistance that we have, and the chemical resistance, because now people are wiping down their hard surfaces in cars with pretty aggressive antibacterials. And then we're also in short circuit television housings for the chemical resistance of the material. So this also kind of gives you an idea of how you get into this market. What's important is to select your customers. because you've got to be dealing with big guys, because they get you into a whole bunch of they can become channel partners for the company. They get you into a whole bunch of applications because they're into all these applications, and they've got a wide range of markets that they're in. So if you can get adopted by some of the big chemical companies, you're going to get brought into a whole range of applications as a result of being their supplier of flame retardants.
So I guess what you're saying is some big company makes these cameras housings, and okay, it works there, but we've got 20 other product lines we're happy with there, and then we'll transfer it over to some of the other products that this is applicable with as they gain comfort with your solution.
No, I'm yes, Martin, but with maybe a nuance. So this is a chemical company. They don't make the cameras. They don't make the cars. They don't make the vape pens. Those are all their customers. They're producing something for the vape pen manufacturers. They've got relationships with all the big OEM, all the big car OEMs. They've got relationships, for instance, if this is Samsung Electronics that's making these surveillance cameras, they've got a relationship with Samsung. So what they're doing is they've developed a product based on Nofia that has attributes, and they're bringing it to their customers and saying, look what I got, and look at this. So they're the ones bringing us into automotive. They're bringing us into electronics, and because those are all their customers. So if you're dealing, let's say, with a really small compounder, well, he might have no relationships, and he might not be able to get into these big brands. But if you deal with a really big chemical company, that you're going to get yourself into some big brands, and that's how we get into big brands. And why Nofia? Why is Nofia getting into this? Because of the uniqueness of the material, because they're doing something that they weren't able to do before because of Nofia. So that's why they get excited. They don't necessarily take it into every single application, because it maybe the performance isn't needed, but they look at their portfolio of applications. They say, this Nofia based product that we have really would work really well in here and here and here, and that's how they bring us into these applications.
Okay, so the chemical companies are really your customers.
Correct.
You sell to them, and then they bring it to the Apple or the Google or the Amazon or the LG or whatever. And then you may supply some technical support to kind of close the sale, to give the data they need to feel comfortable with it. But the chemical company's your client.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. This is how we sell. So we have direct people in China, South Korea, Europe, North America, but it's not a huge direct sales force. It's a pretty lean and mean and very technical kind of a sales force. But what we've set up is a network of distributors and agents around the world, and you see quite a concentration there in Asia, because it's a big market. So we have distributors and agents in all the main regions that we're in, and with a concentration in Asia. This is the cap table as we went out. So we have 80 million shares, basic shares, and we have warrants and legacy options below that. So total fully diluted today is 86 million shares. We have long-term debt, $12.5 million of long-term debt. That's with KBC, Belgian bank, and we took that loan. The majority of that, 12, I think 11.5 is with KBC, and we have a very company-friendly loan for $1 million with Covestro. To attract us to put the plant on their site. But so 11.5 it was with KBC. We took that loan to help defray the cost of building the plant in Antwerp, and it was guaranteed by the Belgian government. That is a we're paying that back in 20 installments. between July 2022 and 2027.
Okay.
Okay.
And just talk about your going public transaction. How much did you raise in total, and just some details on that?
Yeah. So we raised a total of $7 million Canadian dollars. We had about from the president's list that we call it, from the insiders, probably about $1 million of it came from our insiders, including the management team and everything else. So we all invested in our own IPO, and then with that came a half warrant. It was a 24-month half warrant with a $1.30 strike price on it.
All right. And how many of the shares are escrowed
Oh yeah. Okay. Good question. So if we go back here, of the 65 million shares, roughly around 58 million of those are escrowed in one way, shape, or form. Either there's a substantial amount of those that are escrowed by the TSX, but there's a smaller portion of that are voluntary lockups together with the lead banker Echelon. So anybody that had more than 2% position in the company in the legacy shareholders was subject to a voluntary lockup, and then those insiders are subject to a TSX escrow. And then of the new shareholders, there's around, of the 14 million there's around 2 million of that, around about 2 million that is also voluntary lockup. And that we did a convertible debenture before doing the go public round of 4 million, and we had an insider wanting to be part of that convertible debenture, so we allowed them in only if they were agreeing to a lockup. So they did agree to a lockup. So altogether, call it close to 60 million shares, of the 80 million that are locked up.
And where you have new shareholders, that consists of that convertible debenture, sort of the going public raise, and then the shell, because you rolled into a shell in those existing shell.
Yeah, there's in the shell there's about 2 million shares in the shell, and about in the shell there's probably about 800,000 of that's locked up as well, because the president of the shell is also on our board, so he becomes an insider, so he got escrowed. And then so there's maybe 1.2 out of the shell that's free trading, and out of the convertible debenture, out of the 5 million that came out of that, there's 3 million of it that's free trading. And then everything that came into through the qualifying transaction, of course, that's free trading.
All right. And you need 12 million to build a new facility, US. You raised 7 million, or sorry.
7 million Canadian.
You raised 7. What are the use of proceeds for that 7 million? You've got a bit of a burn right now, and just to sort of scale up the existing operation.
Yeah, so it's really working capital. When we went out to raise the money, had we raised more, we would have started the expansion already. So we have a little bit in there for some engineering, and then the rest of it is really working capital as we grow our business. Because we're going to be, we're doubling and tripling our business, so that requires some working capital. So that's part of that.
Is that sufficient working capital to get to the point where you fill up the existing capacity? So let's say you weren't what happens to the world, but you just got that capacity, you fill up your production, and you're running with the existing facility. Do you have enough capital to do that?
We think so. We think so. This should be enough to get us there. But it takes 18 months to expand the plant, and so we are going to need to do something well before the plant is sold out, because you can't wait until the plant is sold out, because it's your 18 months later before you have your new capacity. And what do you do in the meantime? And how are you're going to disappoint a lot of big customers? So what we've got to do is, as soon as we get an indication that we are absolutely going to get this business next year, which will be, in the next, let's say, 3 to 5 months, we'll know. Then that is the point in time when we have to pull the trigger and expand, because you just can't let yourself get to be sold out without having the opportunity the year after to continue to grow your business. You just can't do that. It's really not a good situation to do that if you're the only producer of a kind of material in the world. It's just not smart.
Okay.
Okay, so these are our legacy shareholders. We raised 120 million USD from all of these folks here over the years, and that's how we built this company. Really, we've made a tremendous investment in terms of the IP, the plant, the application development know-how. All of that, it was required to get this company to this point today. So Citic Capital is our largest shareholder. They have 25%. They were also on the board. Evonik is number 2 biggest shareholder. They have a little over 12%. Triton Systems is the 3rd largest. This is a research company. We spun out of Triton Systems, and they've been with us all the way through and continue to invest in every single round. Very excited. They're also on the board. And then the 4th largest is Etelmatch. Bain Capital owns Etelmatch. That's why they're on this chart. They have 90% of Etelmatch. Etelmatch is a big phosphorus chemical company, and they have around 6% of the shares. And then Capricorn, PMV, which is the Belgian government, and Mubadala, which is the United Arab Emirates. It's the sovereign wealth fund of the United Arab Emirates. Those 3 are kind of the next grouping, and then after that it's BASF, Israel Clean Tech Ventures, and Robeco Sam are the 3rd. The bottom part of the share structure of the existing shareholders. So these are big name funds that we've been able to attract into the company over the years, and they've been extremely supportive. And everybody here that had more than 2% holding, they all agreed to voluntary lockup, and many of them were escrowed by the TSX. 3 of them are escrowed by the TSX.
Okay.
And that's it. I mean, I can go through the team, but maybe, I'm the founder of the company together with Dieter Freitag. I just want to mention Dieter. Dieter is, a decorated chemist. He was the senior VP of research at Bayer Material Science that then became Covestro. They spun out their plastics business into a company called Covestro. He's the guy that invented the plastic that allowed the CD disc to be an invention. Philips came to Bayer and wanted them to develop a plastic that could turn their CD disc into a real invention, and Bayer did not think that was possible until Dieter had got a hold of it, and he developed it. So he's very well known worldwide. Unfortunately, Dieter passed away from melanoma cancer, but we're continuing on his mission. So he and I, we founded this company together. Marc is our chief financial officer. He's in Vancouver. He's got quite an experience with public companies, Canadian public companies, and he brings a lot of depth there from that perspective to us. Mike Good is our chief commercial officer. He I've known Mike for a long time. He joined us just last year. He worked for the largest flame retardant company in the world prior to joining us, and wanted to have the company he was working with were bromine and phosphorus flame retardants, but very big on the bromine side. And he's an environmentalist himself, and he wanted to join the company and be part of this adventure. So then the board, there's Ross from Triton Systems, Jim Cassina is from the Shell company. Frank Hallam is our chair of our audit committee, really strong financial guy. He's the CEO of Platinum Group Metals. And then we have Bernard Moore, who's with Ebonic, and then Kat and Feng Lu. They're both with CITIC Capital.
All right.
Okay.
We're going long here, but I do want to ask a couple questions. On one of the earlier slides, you had your patent. So can you just talk about like the IP, the patents? Is it in, like, you have a special manufacturing process, or it's a recipe, or it's probably a bit of everything?
Yeah, so we've actually patented across our whole supply chain. So the active ingredient that makes this polymer flame retardant is a special phosphorus-based monomer that we developed. We invented it, so we patented that. Everything we produce in Antwerp, all the different products that we produce in Antwerp, those are patented. And then those products in Antwerp that we've patented in combination with the host plastics, with a bunch of host plastics, those are patented. Those compositions are patented. And then those compositions in end-use applications, like in fibers or in printed circuit boards or in electronic display housings, those are patented. So we've kind of put together a patent estate that is very complicated to get around. And the reason we did that is that the first company that I founded before FRX, so this is the third one, but the first one, we got around Exxon's patent. A bunch of kids in a garage, and they had 3 patents, and they thought they owned the world with 3 patents. So we kind of looked at that. We said, well, geez, we can get around those patents. We could do this, we could do that, and we did. And we started a business. And they came after us, but they had to cease and desist because we were clearly around their patents. So when we started FRX, we decided, we're going to do this in a way that it's not going to be so easy to get around. And the other reason we did it the way we did it is that when you bring a new material into the world, your customers want a patent immediately. They want a patent. It's new, so they're going to patent something. And then if you're not careful, what's going to happen is you're going to be stuck selling to just one customer, because if they get the foreground patents, then you're stuck. This has happened. It happens a lot in the materials world. So you've got to kind of make sure that you've got the football field kind of covered, and then they can patent in your football field, but as opposed to the other way around. So we kind of laid out a really good patent estate that allows us to sell to more than one customer. So those were the 2 reasons we did what we did.
All right. And this sounds like you've got several products without getting, like, it's a platform technology. Are there uses in, I don't know, other chemical attributes so you can get a bigger slice of the overall chemical pie if you go into some different sectors, or just talk about how far-reaching your technology could be?
Yeah, so it is a platform technology. We make 3 different product lines in the same plant on the same assets, but more so to allow us to go into a whole bunch of different applications on the flame retardant side, as opposed to going outside the flame retardant side. One area that we are looking at, and that we do beyond flame retardancy, that is kind of a standalone, is for recycled polyester. Because our product repairs the polyester. So anytime you put a plastic through a heat cycle, like you melt it and then you form a part with it, and then you take that part and you remelt it and form it into a different part, you lose the molecular weight over time. Every time you do that, you put it through a heat cycle, you lose the molecular weight, meaning you lose the properties. So our product combines in polyester in such a way that it repairs the molecular weight of the polyester. So an area that we've often thought about is to use it as a it's called in the industry a chain extender for polyester, and forget flame retardancy, just chain extender. But we think there's more value. There's other ways to chain extend. We think there's more value to be a combination flame, chain extender / flame retardant, as opposed to just a chain extender. There's more value for us in that, and for our customers.
All right. They're banning the bromines and the halogens and so forth. You talk about being the only product out there. Are you, like, you must have some kind of competition? When the bromides get banned, or are you literally the only guy?
No, absolutely, we have competition. And when I say we're the only product of its kind, we're the only polyphosphonate in the world. We're the only producer of the product that we make. There's nobody else making polyphosphonates. But that doesn't mean to say that there are not other companies making other phosphorus-based flame retardants that are not polyphosphonates. There's some other chemistry around phosphorus. That exists. I mean, we're in that market. But what makes us different than all of them is that they're either powders or liquids. So we have much higher molecular weight. We have these additional properties that we bring beyond flame retardancy. They can claim something like that as well. But we definitely have we think the premier solution in this kind of market.
Are you able to capture a premium price when you sell it on I guess you look at it, the cost per end pound of product or that, or do you essentially just have to, the market expects a certain price for flame retardancy and you got to hit that?
Well, what we try to do is we look for applications where we can sell at the price that we want to sell at, and we're selling at around $10,000 to $10,500 per ton is the kind of price that we're really happy with. And so what we do is we look for applications where we can be competitive at the article basis at that kind of price. So to know if you're competitive is you got to know how much flame retardant the competition has to put into a product to make it flame retarded. You got to know what is the weight of the final compound that they're selling, because at the end of the day, when you think about a part, if you're filling this, like, can you see this? It's a volume that you're filling, right? This is a volume. It's not weight, it's a volume. So if you have a lower specific gravity, then you need less material, less kilograms to fill this part. If you fill it with copper or aluminum or stainless steel, the same volume is going to this pen's going to weigh way more than if it was filled with something that had a specific gravity of 1 versus specific gravity of 5. I mean, that's just a fact of life. So that's why light weighting, you go to plastics as opposed to metals. So the same thing goes when you're now making your formulation. Bromine is heavy, and the synergist is really heavy. So when we compete against bromine, we have that on our side, because the customer doesn't really care, what he is spending per kilogram. He cares about how many kilograms he needs to put into here to fill this volume. So that's an advantage we have versus bromine and some phosphorus-based materials as well. We lightweight the actual compound because we have a lower specific gravity. So that's something you got to know. You got to know how much loading you're going to need to put in versus the competition. And when you know those two things, then you can kind of decide what price you can pay to be equivalent. And we've always, our idea has always been to be equivalent, not trying to get a premium for the product, because that just takes longer to get the adoption. So we're trying to go in on equal basis, so the customer doesn't have to pay more, but is getting all these benefits.
Has the customer adoption cycle, is it going to speed up once your chemical company customers and then their end users get more used to it, understand the different formulations and so forth, and once it becomes more established? Or is it always going to take like a year to onboard a client because they have to do their testing and that, if I have the dates right?
So I think what happens in this world is that the first, a new application, like first time in fibers or first time in, any new application for a material, that's what takes the longest amount of time, because you got to go through all kinds of testing. The second customer or the second application, that's the same, then that goes way faster. You cut the time in half, and you may have 10% or 20% of the time to get that done. And then what happens though, what speeds it up even more is when there's a regulatory change. Then you can't screw around. The market doesn't screw around now. They're like, the conversations, when there's no big regulatory push, is like, okay, I know it's coming, I'll test it. Yeah, it looks good. I'll put it in a couple of applications and we'll see how it goes. Now it's, I've got to change. I've got to do it by 2024. I've got to get my whole supply chain rejiggered because I've got to get out of bromine. So that is that is what's happening now. So it's going way faster now, way faster.
I think this is my final question here. I would think as well, more of a tailwind for you, like you're getting some big regulatory tailwinds, but when the regulators see that there are some economic alternatives and you're not really stuck with the halogens because there are some great alternatives, the bromine lobbyists have less weight when they go in there and say, hey, you can't switch out, there's no alternatives, and so forth. Is that a fair assumption?
No, absolutely. Like last year, just a case in point, the state of Washington, the Department of Ecology, which is the department that can ban chemicals for the state of Washington, called us up. And they said, we are thinking of doing this ban in all these devices, all these electrical housings. And there's lobbyists in the state here from the bromine industry that are telling us that there's no alternatives. If we do that, we're going to be, sacrificing fire safety for human health. Do you guys agree with that? Is it true? Is there an alternative to bromine? So we said, yeah, of course there's an alternative. Can you send us case studies? So we sent them case studies. So that gave them the confidence to go forward. So that's always the first line of defense for the bromine industry is, oh my God, you guys are nuts. Now, people are gonna burn to death because there's no alternative, and it's just not true. And so it shows up like that, in terms of the this year, when we saw what the state of Washington came out with, and they should pass in the second half of the year, they're going way broader than European Union and New York State. And they talked about curling irons and hair dryers and blah, blah, blah. And we said, I wonder if they know that bromine is used in synthetic hair. We're in synthetic hair, but on the halogen free side, on the bromine free side. And we have one customer in South Korea, Uno, that's a relatively important customer of ours. And so we called them up. We said, do you even know that there's bromine in hair? Like, you're worrying about high touch surface areas. Can you imagine, in hair, if you're a woman and you've got a wig, or I could probably use a wig as well. I'm losing my hair, but like you're always touching your hair. You're always, and so they're going to ban it in synthetic fibers and synthetic hair as well. So, this is how it goes. It's kind of interesting.
All right. And I'd like to wrap these up with, you mentioned kind of news flow over the next 6 months or so. You're expecting a big contract win, which will then trigger some expansion and so forth. What kind of news flow are you going to announce, like bigger client wins, and what types of news flow should investors be expecting over through the end of the
I mean,
year?
I think that one of the really hard things about this business is that customers don't like you to let the world know that they're using you. It's kind of an exceptional situation when a customer says, you know what, we want to do a joint press release with you. Well, we just had one of those situations, including the OEM. So the press release we put out yesterday is kind of an exceptional one, because our customer is all about it, because they want to be associated with us because of our ESG credentials. We've got all of these certifications, these green certifications. The Chem Forward, Green Screen, TCO, Ercotex. Like we are the poster child for ESG in this space. So they wanted to be associated with us, and so they said, well, we want to do a joint press release because we want to jump on your bandwagon. We want to kind of get on your coattail. And then the OEM was also all about it, wanted to do it as well, because they were switching out of bromine. They wanted to show the world they're taking the most advanced flame retardant out there. So we hope that we're going to be able to do those kinds of press releases, together with our clients. Because we think those are the strongest ones, to not only, for the financial world, but it's really for, to show the rest of our customers, don't be afraid, you can adopt us. Look at these guys are. So that's why we're kind of very keen to do those kinds of press releases. So, but that's where you're gonna see. And to the extent that the OEM allows their name to be in the press release, then we'll do it. If they don't, we'll just talk about it generally, but we're going to be announcing the new wins.
Okay.
Yeah.
Marc, thanks a lot for taking the time to talk with us. That was very interesting. I'm going to be watching as you progress throughout the rest of the year, and hopefully get you back and talk about some of your the progress you can make through the remainder of the year.
Terrific, Martin. I really appreciate you putting this on and inviting me to join your group. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. All right. Have a great day. Cheers.
Thanks. Bye-bye.